That is the sound of a distracted, divided, and dead American until they hear. Battle for Freedom, triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Hello everyone, I'm your host Watson Prene from Battle for Freedom on Mojo 5 Radio, and I'm glad that you're joining me, and we are going to continue this series on the Lester Holt Standard Part 3. We're just dealing with the idea of why Project Veritas. Why Project Veritas? And it's just not just the company itself and the movement that has basically gone out of its way to James O'Keefe and the wonderful work that he has done, but it goes way beyond that. This idea that Lester Holt made a statement, and I'll share it shortly, about the whole idea that fairness is overrated when it comes to reporting the news. The reason why we do this, the reason why you have alternative media that shows you the data that you need to hear, is because fairness is not overrated. The truth needs to be exposed in whichever way possible. And I dare say, even if it hurts us, the truth still needs to be exposed. I'm your host, Watson Prene from Battle for Freedom on Mojo 5 Radio. If you go to mojo50.com, you can sign up. You won't get spammed. Share it out as many people as you possibly can. Kick back. Have your American Pride Roasters coffee. You don't know what it is? Let me share with you right now. American Pride Roasters coffee. And we'll talk a little bit more after this.
That's it. I've hit the snooze button a dozen times, and now I have to finally get going. But I'm not going to do this day right if I don't start it off with a cup of American Pride Roasters coffee, the official coffee of Mojo 5 Radio. But I'm not going to lie to you. They have a wide variety of blends, but I'm leaning towards the one that's named after me, Watson's White Chocolate Caramel. You know what? It sounds as good as those words that just rolled off of my mouth. Listen, get it today. AmericanPrideRoasters.com. Tell them that Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you, and you want Watson's White Chocolate Caramel blend to start your day off. Join American Pride Roasters Coffee and Mojo 5 Radio, and most important, Battle for Freedom, as we celebrate the best coffee in the nation. American Pride Roasters.
Yes, American Pride Roasters coffee, folks. Share it with as many people as you possibly can. And if you don't believe me that it's good, I want you to go to facebook.com/Mojo50 Radio, and you can see a lot of people. You have Carolyn, Heidi, Amy, Josh and Jill, Linda, Kathy, Paige, Curtis, Lep. Every last one of them can tell you that the products that we share and offer to you via Mojo50 Radio are great quality content that you won't regret, especially if you have a penchant for coffee and Java and being hooked up. Get yourself American Pride Roasters coffee, and trust me, you will not regret it. So I want to continue on this thing about the whole idea of Lester Holt basically saying that the news is, or the fairness is overrated. Let's get back into what he said, and let's see if we can find this, because I want to make certain that we don't miss this. What he's saying.
It's become clearer that fairness is overrated. Well, before you run off and tweet that headline, let me explain a bit. The idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in. That the sun sets in the west is a fact, and a contrary view does not deserve our time or attention. Now, I know recent events assure that you won't have to look far to find more current and relevant examples. I think you get my point. Decisions to not give unsupported arguments equal time are not a dereliction of journalistic responsibility or some kind of agenda. In fact, it's just...
So this is where he's going on to basically say, hey, we don't have to show all sides of the story. And I'm glad you're enjoying it, Amy. Go to facebook.com/Mojo50 Radio. Leave your comments and how you can share with people of how much you enjoy American Pride Roasters coffee. And if you want the Watson's White Chocolate Caramel blend, trust me, you can't go wrong. And here it is. He's basically saying fairness is overrated. He understands what he is saying is wrong in its context and its key. Putting everything in its context, he'll try and explain it away and say, well, we don't have to address every issue that's out there. But is that true? I mean, because if you only have half of the story, remember we have all these different examples. Like, what is it? The telephone game? That some information gets passed on and the next person shares it and it's altered and then it goes to the next person. And by 30 people, not even 30 people later, 10 people later, you could have a completely different story because of the way that people hear or process the information. And Lester Holt is basically saying to us, we don't have to deal with this. Exactly, Kathy. They perform word gymnastics to basically say that I don't have to be responsible in the news and the information that I present to you. So the rest of us who are eager to actually get you to not just work on sound bites, but actually hear more of the story and then say, hey, we're going to give you the information. We're going to let you hear some of the story. We will editorialize. We'll give you our opinions on the story. But when we sit here and we give you more of the data, or we even tell you, wait a few days before more information goes out. Because now there's more video going out about the Chauvin trial, or even what happened between Derek Chauvin and George Floyd. So there's more information. Is it accurate information? We don't know, but a lot of people have made assumptions. And again, now mind you, regardless of the information, hear this. After he was subdued, if Derek Chauvin was on the neck of George Floyd for 9 minutes, there was no reason for it. No reason for it whatsoever. Okay? But there's a lot of data that we get so over emotional on, and that we never get a chance to really process the data because we're too emotional. What does Jeremiah 17:9 say? The heart is deceitfully wicked beyond all measure. Who can know it? And so what we do is we emotionally go into a story. We bring in our presuppositions. We bring in our predispositions towards the truth. We bring in our biases. And unfortunately, it clouds our judgment from actually hearing all the data. If your lens is black power, black is right, and black is beautiful, you'll always see white is wrong. You'll always see white is wrong. It's skewed. Every bias, every label that we put on us is another filter, another lens that covers our sight and prevents us from hearing the data correctly. Every last one of us. We could have a conservative lens. We could have a liberal lens. We could have a Republican lens. We could have a Democrat lens. We could have a black lens. We could have a white lens. We have a male lens. We could have a female lens. Every lens gets further and further and clogs up our vision and our ability to process the scene the correct way. Instead of it just being a raw glass lens coming out of the camera and soaking in as much as it possibly needs to. Just let the image be raw, and there's nothing else to be added to it. No other interferences, no other effects that's brought to it. You're just seeing the picture. You're just seeing the news the way it's intended to be seen. Yes, Kathy, anger and hate brews more clouds. And true, Curtis, if it bleeds, it leads. Let's get into this. I saw this a few days ago, but I had someone share this with a good friend, actually the friend who provides you this wonderful service.
Does your mind seem like it often shuts down before it even starts? Sounds like you need to detox to improve your health in body, mind, and spirit. I'd like to tell you about New Life Holistic. It is an amazing therapy process that uses neurofeedback and biofeedback for many issues that ails everyone. New Life's method and approach to health, balance, energy, and vitality is what sets it apart from anything you have experienced ever before. Call 1-833-4-BIO-LIFE and tell them Watson from Battle4Freedom had sent you. One more thing. Give them the code MOJO50 and save $50 off of your first session. The consult is free. New Life Holistic.
New Life Holistic, share it out with as many people as you possibly can. Let them get the proper healing that they need to overcome a lot of the different things that are put in their lives, make them stressed out about the news. But here's one, again, Dr. Anthony, he shared this with me yesterday. And I found this interesting. Detroit News, a story that basically says 246 vaccinated residents diagnosed with COVID after getting the vaccine, and 3 of them are dead. This is from a Michigan report. Well, there's another report that I'd love to share with you, but the problem is the moment that I put it on Facebook, the moment that I post it online, it's going to have a fact check stamp on top of it, and you won't be able to process all the information because there are doctors out there, there are people with the information, with the facts that'll let you know that most often, and if not all the time, when it comes to reporting the negative effects of COVID vaccines or any vaccines out there, they're usually only getting to you 10% of the actual numbers of the people who have died as a result of these vaccines. So when this article says 3 dead, understand that the number's probably closer to 30, or it could even be much higher than that. But see, and here's the part about it that really gets me is they get you emotional about the whole idea of not one child should be left separated from their parents. Not one child should die out there in the desert coming to this country and looking for freedom and just the American way. As they sit there and say not one child should die, not one person should die trying to come into this country, why is it that they do not have the same emotions and power to say that not one person should die from the COVID vaccine? Because of the fact that if it's so emotional of what we're doing at the border, it should be so emotional about what we're doing in the lab and supposedly trying to cure or provide relief from this pandemic that has been killing hundreds of thousands of people. Why is it? See, this is the reason why you know that you're manipulated, because you can't have the same passion for one area that you have for the other. We're all biased to some degree, and we decide to chew on what matters most to us at that time, rather than having a more bigger 30,000-foot view so you can take everything in. You may not be able to process it all at the same time, but you at least have the decency and the integrity to recognize this is bigger than just one issue. It's bigger than one issue. And also, there's more to the story if we spend time actually researching it rather than running off of the mouth with only one piece of information. See, everybody wants to make their assumptions, and you know what they say, making assumptions makes an bleep out of you and me. And this is the reason why. So when Lester Holt, who gets this award for his journalistic integrity, can go out of his way to sit here and say that we don't need both sides of the story, that's the reason why so many people, I've got to go with this. This is probably one of the most annoying phrases I've heard in the last 20 years from some very angry, bitter people. Bush lied and people died. You ran with that statement. Bush hate black people. You ran with that statement. Donald Trump is racist. You ran. Central Park 5. Don't let black tenants. Ran with the statement. Did not get all the information, but just made assumptions. And love Trump's hate. You ran with the statement, but you never did the due diligence. Now, a lot of people will tell you, Watson Prunier is a major Trump hater. I am not a Trump hater. I just want to be consistent on what we expect from people. And we can't hold certain officials to a standard that we don't hold all officials to the standard. We can't hold moral standards to people that we won't hold to everyone, including ourselves. So I'm not a Trump hater, but I'm going to do what a lot of people don't want to do. They're too scared to do because they don't want to get off of the Trump train. Is that they don't want to call out the president when his behavior is wrong. We can call out Bill Clinton, we can call out Barack Obama, we can call out George Bush, we can call out Mike Pence, we can call out everybody, but we don't want to call out Donald Trump. We can call out Kamala Harris. We can make all these kind of statements. We can make all these hurtful statements. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that my words have hurt you. Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, every last one of us have allowed words to hurt us. Every last one of us. Some of us are just too proud to even admit it. Listen, we get happy with Donald Trump Let's be real about this, because this is where the fairness, it has to come into play. If you can utter vile things, you need to be able to receive vile things. Don't get offended, folks. Don't get offended. Basically, reap what you sow. See, and so if you sow discord, you sow misinformation, get prepared for that misinformation and that discord to come back your way. This is a biblical concept. Now, some of you may call it karma and everything like that. But I say this because of the fact that as all the information, as terms of misinformation, hatred, and deception, and all these other different things that are being thrown up, it's not just by the left, it's also by the right. It's not just by them, it's also by us. See, this is the reason why, when we're clamoring and we want fairness and everything like that, fairness isn't just in the news. Fairness just isn't in politics. Fairness is in every aspect of our life. Why Project Veritas? Is because, you know what? Project Veritas goes out of their way to expose the lies and the deceptions from media organizations, from any organization out there clamoring to be, woke and seeking the truth and trying to make certain that everybody's equal. But you'll see in everything that they do and all the people that they expose, James O'Keefe exposes the lies of the people who are sitting there, and they're abusing their powers. They're abusing their rights and privileges against other people. See, and now primarily the Project Veritas has been hitting liberal organizations, but what would happen if Project Veritas also did the same in conservative organizations? What would happen is not just Fox News. I dare say any bastion of media that proclaims to be for the truth and against liberal progressivism. What would Project Veritas say? See, this is, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear about the abuses of power on our side. It's kind of like the Pharisees. They didn't want to hear about the abuses of power that they had when they were exacting rules and regulations over the common folk who weren't spiritually enlightened like they were. And they abused their power so much that they wanted and they forced and ushered in the crucifixion of Christ. And we right now are crucifying people who don't align with us ideologically, spiritually, politically. And so when we start experiencing some of the hurt, some of the pain, because this is one of the things that I love on this, because it's this morning's my biblical verse that I was just going over and working on here. I love this because of the fact that it's Romans chapter 8, 35 through 39. Just talks about the whole idea of, there's this verse on here that says the idea of being more than conquerors. See, right now, yesterday, if you had a chance, go listen. I was in 2 Chronicles yesterday, and I really attacked the misinterpreted and one of the most abused passages in the Bible in these troubling times. 2 Chronicles 7:14, about the whole idea of my people will humble themselves and pray. And I tell you that it has been used as a means of garnering this fidelity from God to make certain that we have guaranteed victory. And it's completely looking at it wrong. Just like this passage about saying more than conquerors, that we have this position that we believe that our position is right. And honestly, we're ahead of God in what we say, what we do, what we think. And honestly, we need to take a step back and get right behind the veil and protection and shield of God and allow Him in His character to be glorified, not us be glorified in our faulty assumptions, our faulty understandings of the truth. And I think that if we really want to be fair, we need to really humble ourselves, take a step back, stop being so eager to expose things, because God is about to go Project Veritas on us. See, we can be angry about what the liberal media is hiding, and we can be as angry as we all want to about the liberal media and what they're hiding and what they won't get out and what they won't share. But we have to recognize that we are doing the same thing. You don't believe me? What are you hiding? What are we hiding from the rest of the world that if they actually got a chance to see what we look like, what you look like, what I look like, they'd actually be disgusted and offended? Why do you think that Lester Holt doesn't want to show all the information? Why do you think that Lester Holt doesn't want to give you the full truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Why? Because of the fact that there's going to be other sides of the information that not only expose the bigger picture and the more fuller picture of the news article that they're trying to talk about, but they'll also expose the bias and the lack of character and integrity in their news reporting process. And honestly, truth be told, we are just the same way. We are just the same way. As I sit here exposing Lester Holt, I'm trying to also help us understand that we ourselves are exposed. Oh yes, the fairness and the statement of fairness being overrated. Honestly, we're about to start seeing a lot of things being overrated, and it namely is our impression or handling of the truth, if it's not based on a humble spirit, yielding to the Spirit of God and the unctioning of God. Every last one of us, folks. This is a warning. Y'all, Lester Holt has been exposed. I shared it earlier this week, in the beginning of this week, in part 1. Go back to Monday's broadcast. As we sit here and we look at how Lester Holt gets this award, saying that the media goes out of their way to do their due diligence and give the information the way that we needed to hear. And then you had Democrats who if we have not given the claps, if we not send emails, if we have not made phone calls to the Florida Democrats that stood up to basically CBS and said, you guys are charlatans because you didn't report the whole story about Ron DeSantis. If we need to say thank you. I know you don't want to say thank you to a Democrat. I know you don't want to do that. But you actually need to pick up the phone. We need to pick up the phone and say, really appreciate you. I may not agree with you on everything that you say and do, but the fact that you decided to speak up against the lying and the outright deception from the media, from the mainstream media, the fact that you did that, I say bravo. I say thank you. We should go out of our way to help them and let them know, and even pray for those individuals. Pray for more individuals, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians. It doesn't matter what their position is in politics, but that they have the strength and the courage to speak forth about the things that are wrong. They have to. And we need that. We want that. But understand this, as we demand transparency in politics, remember, as we were requiring transparency from our leaders, from our politicians, God is also demanding transparency from us. Fairness. If we want fairness, if we want it to be equal, if we want transparency from them, God is also demanding transparency from us. It's not a one-way thing that, oh, they're responsible, they're the leaders, they have these positions, and they're supposed to be open, and they're supposed to, no. If our lives have to, and being in a public position doesn't mean that solely relegates them as the only ones who have to be more open about who they are. See, because God is about to try and show and shut down that madness and shut down that foolishness. Whew. There's more I want to talk about, because I want to get into this thing about, we had another shooting. We had another shooting, and we're going to talk about this one, because today is the big day where there's the big announcement on Biden's executive order on gun control. Remember, the news doesn't want to remind you that Biden in September, October said that tyrants rule by executive order. See, a lot of people are like, well, a lot of the executive orders that he wrote were to basically undo a lot of the different things that Trump did. So what executive order, I want you to think about this as we go into break. What executive order did Trump write to make it possible for ghost guns or high-powered things that are going on there? Oh, you don't have that discussion. Well, that's okay. Don't worry about it. We're going to go to a break, and I'll talk to you beautiful people on the flip side.
And now, homeschooling with Watson.
Okay, now it's time to quiet down.
Daddy's in the backyard. He left his phone now.
Time for class.
Aww.
Simmer down.
Okay, Daddy.
Okay, so let's get into the lesson.
Daddy,
Yes, sweetie?
why aren't you playing those funny songs on your break anymore? Awkward!
Because those commie Nazis of big tech have nothing better to do than harass people like me?
Whoa! Triggered!
Yes, Olive. What do you want to ask me?
What's a commie Nazi? Triggered!
It's when the totalitarians of the Progressive Democrat Party are aggressively destroying our country.
Did you have too much American Pride Roasters coffee, Daddy? Daddy?
Yes, sweetie.
What's a totalitarian? What's a totalitarian?
It's power-hungry people making really bad rules that they will not follow themselves.
Isn't that what you tell us happens with big government?
Yes! Exactly! You make me want to cry.
Aww! We love you, Daddy. We love you, Daddy.
I love you too. Now, where were we?
Government back. God give. Amen. Hallelujah.
I love being a dad. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo 50 Radio. Oh, for those of you who listen in your cars, you may miss this if you're listening to the podcast. Or if you're listening right now on if you're listening on iHeartRadio, you probably miss it. You'll have to go to the Facebook or the YouTube broadcast to catch what happened in the middle. But I had a lot of fun with my kids, and what I'll do is I'll let you hear it tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, and I'll make certain that you can get a chance to hear. You can hear the fun that I have as I sit here having fun with my kids. And yes, those were my kids as we put something together for you, as we make fun of the idea of being censored, because censorship is just a real thing here on social media. And it's so sad because so many people, a lot of my friends who are pro-Democrat, who are pro-progressive, who are pro-wokeness, they refuse to believe the idea of censorship that we have been talking long before the censorship that took place in social media. Long before, you had COVID fact checking and things like that. Long before 2020, as we told them about the idea that the big tech giants are throttling us, they're shadow banning us. It was all conspiracy theory. No. They're just now open about it, and they're not hiding it. So as we sit here and we talk about this, it's very sad to see exactly where we are with fairness and truth when it comes to the news. The Lester Holt standard about saying that fairness is overrated as we sit here and we say, why Project Veritas? I tell you, it's for this reason now. They have gone out of their way. History will tell you that every time the government started censoring the people, they went immediately to disarming the people, and then came the higher form of tyranny. History will tell you that. But when you have woke teachers telling you about studying the number of hairs in your belly button rather than the truth and reality, the stark reality of how communism, socialism, fascism, and totalitarianism, or totalitarian, yes, I love how my little sweetie, my 4-year-old could not say totalitarianism, but it was perfect because it worked great for that little snippet of fun for you. Because my 4-year-old can't say totalitarianism, and the media won't say it either. At least she has a reason to not be able to say totalitarianism. At least she doesn't. And even my 6-year-old who doesn't know how to say commie Nazi, we recognize that we're at this point where the media has done everything they can. The school institutions have done everything they can to uneducate our people and just hand them a piece of paper and making them believe that they are now educated because I have a stinking degree. I have 4 years in understanding, frog migrations and sexual patterns rather than understanding the basic fundamentals of history, discernment, and also critical thinking. No, I can recite all these different things from gender studies, but I can't tell you the reality of what happens when people are unable to speak, unable to defend themselves, and unable to hold their government accountable. That is the reason why we demand fairness, Lester Holt, because of the fact that you are not giving the full side of the story. I even just get back to the whole idea of my disgust with even what in the poor failures. It's not just failures. It is intentional deception in our schools where we get into Black History Month. Now we have Women's History Month, and we have all these different months that these kids are looking at these pockets of history, but they won't give you the bigger picture. This is intentional that they don't tell you American history the way that they do. I remember going to school. History was something all year long. We didn't just use one particular time. I remember learning about the serfs and learning about that form of slavery so long ago. I don't even think that they talk about the serfs anymore in history. Because the only slavery that they can talk about is the slavery in the United States of America, like no other nation, no other nation, past, present, and future, has dealt with slavery. That is the reason why we demand fairness, because of the fact that in the literature, in the teaching classes that talks about slavery, and we really get into it in Black History Month, we only make it seem like people that look like me were the only people and darker were the only people who suffered the evil machinations of people who would keep people in bondage for the sake of profit. We don't want to talk about the people who don't look like me, the ones who look like my wife, who were brought here as indentured servants and slaves against their will from Ireland and many other different places. We don't want to talk about the news. Thanks, Gene Beardelli of buffoonoftheweek.com, who shared out an article that showed that I think it was in 1888, where there was a statement basically saying, give no business to Italians. Give no business. Hey, these are white Europeans who are being discriminated against in 1888. This is basically 23 years after the end of the Civil War. This is about 15 to 17 years after blacks have been freed from slavery, given the right to vote, made American citizens, and we're now discriminating against Italians. We discriminated against the Irish. But if we are not fair, if we're not being fair and in sharing the information and talking about the atrocities of man, the sinful hearts of man, we can lead and move whatever narrative and whatever story that we want. Not being faithful to the truth, not being faithful to history, not being faithful to those who are under our tutelage and need to learn and understand history and how to process the information and process the data. So as we sit here and we tell you time and time again, when you are removed from your ability to sit there and speak the truth, then you are removed from your ability to defend yourself, and then the tyranny continues to take place. The tyranny continues to take place. The corruption continues to take place over and over again. Now we have another shooting. South Carolina. 5, including prominent doctor and 2 of his grandchildren, shot dead in South Carolina before police arrest suspect after manhunt. The unidentified suspect was arrested near the home on Wednesday. And you know what? The suspect could be white. Okay? I'm willing to go 12% in on this, that the suspect is white. But 88% of me is saying that this suspect isn't white, he's black. He's Hispanic. He's Asian. He's Muslim. He is non-white. Why? Because by now, in the narrative of saying domestic terrorists and guns are out of control and guns are too easy to get, we need the narrative of angry white men shooting up people and basically ruining the landscape of love, peace, tranquility, and unity in this country. It's very interesting in this age of tolerance, love, diversity, and inclusion. We don't want to include minorities in the list of mass killers. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that we never want to, in an age where corporate America is going apoplectic on diversity and inclusion, we don't want to include minorities, whether they're straight, whether they're gay, whether LGBT or Muslim or even the likes of an illegal immigrant who came across the border, who like the one who killed Kate Steinle years ago. But we can't say her name, but we have to say Breonna Taylor's name. We have to say George Floyd's name. We have to say Tamir Rice's name, but we can't say Kate Steinle's name. We can't say Brian Terry's name, who was killed at the border because of the fast guns and runnings from Fast and Furious from the Barack Obama, Joe Biden administration. We can't say that. We can't talk about that corruption. We can talk about Russian collusion. We can talk about quid pro quo. We can orgasm on Nixon and his impeachment all day long, but we can't talk about what the Barack Obama administration has done in authorizing investigations against American citizens and dare say a political candidate. We can't have that discussion, Lester. It doesn't have to be verified. But you know what? Russian collusion wasn't verified, but it carried the airwaves for 4 years. It carried the airwaves for 4 years. Quid pro quo carried the airwaves for 4 years. All the sexual things that people have done. I mean, even the idea, what was it? Was it NBC who interviewed that one woman? No, it was CNN because it was what is his name? White guy, silver hair. His mom was Gloria something. Anderson Cooper. You remember how Anderson Cooper had interviewed that one woman who basically was who was trying to sell her book, but she was talking about how Donald Trump had sexually assaulted her. It was, and then she lost credibility when she later said rape is actually something erotic and something to be appreciative of. You let the loons come out of the woodwork, but when they get a little bit too loony, we got to shut them down because they don't feed the narrative of what we are. You didn't vet the people out to find out whether or not they are not 30 cents short of a quarter. You just want to throw out anybody who's going to say anything negative about Trump because that worked your narrative. Yeah. Yes, Kathy. Russia and China are laughing at us, and you know what? And here's a good one. Oh my goodness. Curtis says you must erase history before rewriting it. And yes, Kathy, you want to know about slavery? Read the Bible. Let me go old school for many of you who don't remember this. RIF. 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 Do you not know what it means? RIF stands for reading is fundamental. You want to know why reading is fundamental? Because you're not going to get. Let me even get funnier. You ain't going to get all the information from the big media tech companies. The big and guess what? In social media, big tech is going to censor out the information that you really need to read and really need to hear, because of the fact that they don't. Internet is forever as long as it works to their advantage. Honestly, the truth is forever, even when it doesn't work out against our advantage. I hate, this is what I don't understand. Why is it we are so hell-bent on posting and sharing the evil wickedness of the United States and what we did with slavery, which was wrong, okay? What we did with slavery was wrong. And a lot of people have already acknowledged that. But people keep living in that reality. And because they're so stuck in slavery, they don't recognize the slavery that they've placed in their minds that doesn't allow them to look at the current day slavery taking place under progressive rule, and I would dare say under government out of control. Because anyone who thinks that big government is better, did not really fully appreciate what the founding fathers accomplished by separating ourselves, going to war and separating ourselves from England. Well, black people didn't benefit from it. Well, you know what? You tell me what event started off correctly. What good movements started off on the best events possible? Huh? I dare say let's go back to this Sunday. As we sit here and we celebrate the resurrection of Christ, let's go back 3 days. An innocent man who did nothing but feed, heal, and teach people gets falsely accused of doing something he didn't do. He got beaten up. He was spit upon. He got whipped. His skin ripped. And taken to a cross and crucified. The most humiliating thing possible. He wasn't wearing a robe. When he was sitting there crucified. He was butt naked on the cross. The most beautiful, the most horrific moment in the history of humanity that actually was so amazing that it defied the calendar schedule and changed it so that we can look back on that moment, that the birth of Christ was the defining moment of our history, of humanity. We're in the year 2021 because of that horrific moment, where humanity showed everything that they could do. Every last one of us, past, present, and future, are guilty of that atrocity on the cross. Every last one of us. Truth be told, we don't want to hear it. We want to blame the Pharisees. We want to blame the Jews. We want to blame everybody, but we don't want to blame ourselves. Understand that Christ dying on the cross. Truth be told, let's be fair about this. If we want to be fair on the news, let's be fair on the good news. We all brought Jesus to the cross. And I don't care who you think you are. I don't care how good you think you are, how good we think we are, how morally superior we think we are. All of us brought Jesus to the cross. All of us. We may not have been holding the nails. We were pounding down the hammer. And if you keep thinking that you are not sinful, you keep thinking that you're not that dirty in soul, spirit, and mind, you are hammering. You are the ones who are hitting the nail of that head all the more harder with vengeance to nail Christ upon the cross. I don't sit here just saying this lightly, because I recognize it's my sin as well. It's my sin as well. The stuff that you don't know about me and the stuff that I don't know about you. But you know what? This screen, the monitor, our doors, our walls, everything prevents people from seeing who we are. You know, probably this is one of the scariest things that I have when I sit here and think about how I need God every day to change me and cleanse me and make me more like Christ, is walking around with something like an iPad on the back of our head that really showed people a picture of what we looked like. See, I don't mind exposing the truth. I don't mind talking about the errors and everything like that that's out there. But truth be told, what if God decided to put an iPad-like thing on the back of our heads so that people could just walk up to us and see how really filthy and dirty we are inside. See, because I think that sometimes even the people who believe that more gun laws, believing that persecuting people who are abiding by the law, that, you know what, because it's those evil people who don't need an AR-15, who don't need all these different things, and now we got another mass shooting, another killing, another reason, a convenient, do you recognize this is like the 5th or 6th mass shooting in 2 weeks? 2-3 weeks. If you can't see the utter evil and wickedness that's going on right now, because people are going to use this stuff to sit here and get people emotional. Yes, we need more gun control. How? Listen, asking you the questions. Let's be fair about this. More people. I saw something else. Jim Lucas, state representative, being pushed out as a racist and hateful towards black people and minorities, getting his stuff twisted. He shared a meme the other day that showed 2 rifle pieces of ammunition, and then two of them, 2 cartridges, and then right next to it was a cigarette. That more people die from cigarettes, but we have done nothing to stop that. We've done nothing to stop all this stuff. See, no one wants to ask those questions. Being fair as a news person asks more questions. And then you have to ask yourself, why now? Why now? And all these things are we getting more and more of these shootings right at the heels of the worst anti-gun legislation, anti-liberty legislations that's taking place right on the heels of the worst anti-First Amendment efforts taking place, when we watch censorship, that no one can talk about the other side of what's going on with vaccines, that no one can sit here and talk about what's going on with this virus, no one can sit here and talk about hydroxychloroquine, no one can talk about the idea of election fraud, no one can have this discussion, because this is what tyrannical governments do to silence people so that they can carry on in more sinister and nefarious things. Don't call us conspiracy theorists, because that's a cheap term to basically nullify and negate the relevance of what another perspective is that people are bringing. Because here's my question for you. As you sit here and we talk about settled science, you know, that someone says, well, I don't, let me find that one, where it said the science doesn't care what you believe. Well, if that's the case, this is shared from a woke person, an anti-Trump person, because he's not about the science. Well, if that's the case, that the science doesn't care what you believe, and you show all the symbols of science and elements and atoms and everything like that, then that means that you've just disproven and shut down the argument that people can actually be trans. Because people who are trans believe in their heart that they're a man, or they're a woman, or they're this, or they're that, that's outside of the binary numbers of male or female. The sciences that have always said male, female, in, out, positive, negative, electrons, protons, everything that has been based on science and repeatable data for so long, and now you're saying the science doesn't care what you believe. This is from the people who say that love trumps hate. And they're trying to say to us that science is above what your Christian faith says. And this person was a Christian who was sharing this stuff. Or this person was an atheist in what they say. So even there, your disbelief in God is neutered because the science actually shows that it doesn't care what you believe. You see how seeing both sides, being fair about all the views, all the data, all the information that comes into this one point, in this one moment in history, when we look at events that take place, we look at the things that led up to it, we look at the things that happened at the same time, and we even look back on that situation. It's multiple views and not just one point to which we never reference, we never put things into context, we never verify the data. So now Joe Biden is going to sit here and he's going to push out an executive order. Yeah, you remember rule by tyranny, requiring background checks for ghost gun buyers, and will nominate a gun control advocate to head the ATF. So you just keep putting more and more tyrants in power to make decisions to strip away our constitutional rights. And a lot of you are so emotional that you don't have the intellectual consistency. We push ourselves off in these intellectual giants, and we have an appreciation of history, knowledge, and everything like that. But we honestly are lacking and deficient in the truth, in discernment, and even in critical thinking. Yes, Lester Holt, you said it correctly. Let's listen a little bit more.
It's the opposite. Providing an open platform for misinformation, for anyone to come say whatever they want, especially when issues of public health and safety are at stake, can be quite dangerous.
Yes, it can be dangerous, especially when people for the longest time keep arguing about AR-15 means assault rifle. You know how many people still believe that? You know how many people still right now are uttering under the idea that an AR-15, I can just hold my finger down and blow down and mow down a whole enough people. Wrong! Especially as we're about to get into this idea of anti-gun legislation. You open an AR-15, you use a Glock. Most handguns that have been used in a lot of the murders that have been taking place have all been semi-automatic. What does that mean? It's not what you saw in the movies. It's not people sitting there shooting Uzis and it's uncontrolled rapid fire that's going off. Every one of this situation, the only way that you will hear more rapid succession of firearms that it sounds like a Gatling gun or it sounds exactly like a machine gun going off, if it's you actually have multiple people firing, 5 to 10 people all firing as fast as they possibly can. That's the closest way that you're going to get anything that sounds like that. But it literally has to be a 1 in a million chance that every last person will pull that trigger at least half of a second right after each other individual and sit there and consistently shoot half of a second or a split second after each other individual in order to simulate the machine blast mentality that you have. But if anyone is sitting there with a firearm who is using a law-abiding citizen who actually has in possession of themselves a semi-automatic firearm, the moment that I pull the trigger, one round is basically fired from the firearm, and basically then a next round is chambered, and the person has to do what in order for that to happen? And what does he have to do to make another round come out? He has to pull the trigger again. Holding onto the trigger on any firearm that is semi-automatic does not push out thousands of rounds in a minute. That is the most ignorant statement that's out there, supposedly based on truth and education. And these are from the educated minds. These are from the educated scientific minds who are out there, and they're like, "Oh, we got these pro-gun, we got these pro-gun gun restrictions vets who are sitting there saying that they believe that we should go off of this." You know what? See. You're too emotional right now to stop and pause and recognize. The Second Amendment is not about deer hunting. Another phrase that just gets pushed out there because they want to make it insignificant. It's not about muskets. This is the reason why studying your belly button or how many donuts I can eat in an hour 101 is the worst class to take. Stop sending your kids to college. Stop, and I would dare say even stop sending them to some public schools and start homeschooling your children with good books on discernment, critical theory, not critical race theory, critical thinking, not critical race theory, because critical race theory is nothing but a lie and a deception from the pit of hell. Start homeschooling your kids. Go Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. Listen to Sam Sorbo, or even go to 4 p.m. on Fridays afternoons. Listen to Sam Sorbo, or just go to samsorbo.com and learn more about homeschooling your kids so that you can pull them out of these schools that are de-educating them, making them ignorant, teaching them what to think instead of how to think, so that they don't regurgitate stupid things like, 1,000 rounds out by pushing on this AR-15 and this army-style weapon. Stop! Because if it was an army-style weapon, the AR-15, you would, because here's the other thing that they don't tell you. When you sit there and you just hold down the gun and you just start firing like that, and it just has this and if you want to learn more about this, if you really want to get educated on guns, I know you do. I dare say, go to mojo50.com, click the button schedule, and look for Defending 2A with Jason Gouffre, who sits there and he'll tell you about guns. He'll break it down for you so you can understand what's happening here. And if you want to know, if you really want to know exactly what's happening here, pick up a book, or even open up your browser or open up your smart device. Start listening to more than what the media is saying. The reason why Lester Holt can say all this nonsense, because they're afraid that people don't believe them anymore. We're about to pass legislation, anti-gun legislation, to disarm law-abiding people. Remember, the criminals don't wait for the law. They keep breaking the law. And you want to make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves? I dare say you are intellectually dishonest and shameful. I'm done with that. And I dare say, let's get ready for Brad Staggs and the Daily Mojo with Rondolph the Gray. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo Fiber Radio. Take care, God bless, and stay alive. Keep hope alive!